Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast,
where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture.
We talk to producers all over the country,
From small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations.
Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades,
We hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs.
here's your host, Troy McClung.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of the Pastured Pig Podcast. We thank you for joining us. A little update here. We're experiencing a little bit of a hot spell in West Virginia with temps in the high 80s and low 90s, which is a bit unusual for us in the month of May when I'm recording this. We've had a good bit of rain, too. We had an epic rain event just the last couple nights. It's been very wet. So it's interesting with the combination of the heat and the sun and the rain. The pigs have been able to find the slightest bit of wet weather springs in the pasture, and they uncovered one right at the edge of one of my roads and have made a wallow that I believe would swallow my side-by-side if I dared to venture into it. So I don't know what it is about them making a wallow where it's the least appropriate place to put it. And you're probably thinking, well, dummy, get your road out of the pasture, but in West Virginia, you got to have a road where you can have a road because sometimes the hills are a little too steep there. Well, in our last podcast, we talked to a producer that was growing rapidly from a large production farm with 2 locations. This episode, we're going to go kind of in the opposite direction. We're going to go to the other side of the spectrum and talk to a smaller size producer raising Kune Kune pigs in New Jersey. We're going to be speaking with Lindsey Koleszar. She's in New Jersey and absolutely loves raising pigs on pasture. What's interesting, she's raising her pigs on 7 acres, less than 10 miles away from the Jersey shore. Can you imagine what that cost per acre would be on buying land in that area? But she's in a good situation there. She's had a corporate job for the last 20 years, but has a major in animal science and farm production, and is excited to apply her education on her own farm. So let's dive right in and talk with Lindsey. Well, let's start right here, Lindsey. Tell us a little bit about you, if you don't mind.
All right. Well, I am in my 40s, married, and have been in a corporate American job for the past roughly 20 years, which is kind of amusing because I actually went to college and majored in animal science to be a pig farmer. That was my actual degree was animal science and farm production and management. I had these grand ideas that I'd be working out on a farm and just playing with animals all day. I quickly realized through my degree that farming was a business, and I quickly realized that living in New Jersey, that making money, that probably wasn't going to happen if I wanted to stay in the state of New Jersey. And I really wanted to stay in the state of New Jersey because that's where my immediate family lives. And I had grown up being a military brat, so I'd kind of bounced around from place to place growing up and wanted to kind of settle and be near my sister who had kids. So staying in New Jersey meant I had to kind of rethink my career choice, and I ended up in pharmaceutical research with my kind of degree in animal science.
Okay.
And 20 years later, still in corporate research.
Okay, that's a pretty good swing there, isn't it? Okay, well, that was going to be my next question is what makes a Jersey girl want to raise pigs? But I understand now that that's your professional training there initially.
Yeah, and actually, when I was a kid, at being a military brat, when I was probably in like the 5 to 6 to 7 age range, we lived in England, and our landlord was a pig farmer. And I don't remember a lot of the nuances, but I remember my mom would used to wake us up in the middle of the night if a pig was farrowing, and she'd run us down to the farrowing house to see the baby pigs being born. So like that always was kind of like in the back of my mind, like being a pig farmer, that just being kind of like normal life.
That's excellent. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the setup where you are right now. So you're in New Jersey, and you had mentioned in some of the information you had sent me prior to that you're close to the Jersey Shore. So give me a setup where you are geographically and the size of your operation there, your property and that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, as I said, I'm in New Jersey. I'm in central Jersey, about 10 miles probably as the crow flies from the Jersey Shore. So it's not really an area that's very well known for pig farming or production farming, but New Jersey does have a large amount of farmland still left in it. Most people don't realize that. They think it's like Newark and Camden and just pure city, but New Jersey does have quite a bit of farmland. There's a lot of vegetable type farms, a lot of horse farms, and then some smaller, more livestock kind of hobby farms. Where we're at, we have just under 7 acres. We bought about 5 years ago from a couple who had bought the place as a retirement house for themselves and then let it go for about 30 years. So we came in and were able to buy it from an estate sale and got a pretty good deal on it being in New Jersey, but just have to do a lot of work, really reclaiming the land from a lot of neglect and overgrowth and trees and shrubs and vines and whatnot. So we're just getting started in the kind of the pig world, in the pastured pig world, to try to reclaim some woods and some just very fallow or very neglected ground and try to bring it back to support pigs in a pastured environment.
Very good. Very good. So do you raise any other livestock right now other than pigs?
No, we had some sheep and goats just as pets. So pigs are our primary livestock. We do have chickens that we do for egg production. Those were really kind of our first foray into getting into the farming world. As I said, I'm in corporate America. I have a job there. I don't come from a farming background. My parents weren't farmers, so it was, besides the college education, the practical piece of it was all pretty new to me and extremely new to my husband. So the chickens were kind of our first step into, do we really want to do something like farming? Quickly became a yes. And then we got a couple of Kune Kunes, and I fell right down the slope.
There you go. That's the story you hear all the time. Chickens are the gateway animal into farming.
Yes.
So,
yes, they are.
Mamas, don't let your kids do chickens. Yes. Okay. Well, excellent. So you had mentioned David there. So is he as on board with this as you are?
He is absolutely on board with this. He's a mason by trade, has his own company. So as he likes to describe our kind of split of chores, he is the groundskeeper and caretaker, and I am the animal care person. So if I need fencing, he does the fencing. If I need vet, I'm the one who deals with the vet. So we've got a pretty good split. He's learning to take care of the animals a little bit, and I'm learning to take care of the grounds a little bit. So it's been a good kind of hybrid role.
That's a good setup. Yeah, that's what you'd call the rigger and the trigger. He's the rigger and you're the trigger, aren't you?
Yeah, and if you're going to marry somebody in construction, masonry is the way to go because, living in the Jersey Shore, we have very sandy soil, so it's hard to keep a wallow. So what does my husband do? He goes and concretes, a corner of the pasture and makes a wallow. I have trouble trimming hooves with one pig who's got very long hooves, so 2 weeks later I have a concrete pad outside the barn for them to walk on. So it's really been very beneficial for me, I have to say.
Absolutely. That sounds like a great asset to have on the farm. Well, okay, you had mentioned already. Let's get into a little bit about the breed. You said you have the Kune Kune?
Yes.
So
I started with 2 Kune Kunes. I started with a barrow and a pregnant sow. I went into Kune Kunes because I knew I'd be the primary animal caretaker, so I wanted something small that I could manage. Had worked with kind of the commercial production type sows at college in a confinement setting, and kind of wanted to get a little bit away from that. With having 7 acres, I knew I didn't have a lot of land. I didn't want something that would overwhelm me, so Kune Kune seemed like it would be a really good choice with some of the research I had done.
Excellent. Okay. So, how many? Let me try that again. How many pigs do you have right now?
Right now, I think I'm up to 15. So I started with 2, and within 2, I've only had them for about 2.5 years, not quite, and I'm up to 15. I have 1 boar, 3 breeding sows, 1 gilt I just brought in actually a couple days ago that I hope to be one of my next breeding sows, and then the remainder are offspring of some litters I had over the past year.
Excellent. So that kind of answers my next question. I assume your boar, he is providing the service instead of AI in that situation.
Correct. Kune Kunes haven't really gone down the path of AI as much as some of the other larger commercial kind of pigs have. I think some people do it, but definitely not as common, and I don't think there's like a semen registry or places you can get semen easily for the Kune Kune. So with them being more docile, a lot of people keep their own boars.
Yeah, and that raises an interesting question. I'm not sure everyone knows exactly the details of that breed. How big would you say your boar is? And then, of course, when you go to market weight or when you have a finished size, what are those sizes relatively?
Yeah, my boar actually seems, from my knowledge with what other people have, my boar is actually quite large. He's 2 years old, and I would say he's around 400 pounds. So I know that's still much smaller than kind of your regular commercial type pigs, but for a Kune, that's at probably like the higher end weight. He is, as I said, he's 2 years. At a year old, he was 225. Which is quite large. I showed him at a year old, and I was in a class with another Kune boar of the same age, and they stopped me, and they're like, "Are you sure you're in the right class? He's very large." So I like that because the Kune Kunes have a lot more desirability for kind of the pet trade. I was looking more for, being able to get a meat product out of them. I like the larger size of my boar. I took 3 to market, to answer your question about the market. I took 3 to market, and they were about 225, and they went to market just under 2, but I probably could have taken them at 16 to 18 months. They were roughly about the same size. They didn't grow much after that. I really kept them on a low-grain diet to try to not fatten them up too much.
Okay, so it sounds like they're topping out. Their feed conversion at a certain point kind of tops out. You said about 16 to 18 months, it sounds like?
It does seem that way.
Great.
I'm very new at this, so there are quite a few others who have really been trying to, develop the Kune into that, more of a meat pig as opposed to the pet trade.
So with your 1 boar and your 3 breeding sows, what's your breeding regimen? Are you breeding, letting them have a litter annually, or are you doing more than 1 per year?
I aim for about 1 litter per sow a year. Seems to be kind of a good ratio. I bred all 3 at the same time last year and had babies last August. Each sow had between 5 to 7 pigs each, so that gives me, kind of enough pigs to send once they hit kind of that 14 to 18 months, send a couple of pigs every month or so to market to kind of have a never-ending supply of pork. We did send 3 young boars to market, more kind of like a roaster weight, about 40 pounds, just to see what it would be like as a roaster at that size.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, you said something there that triggered another question. So you sent some boars. Do you, with the Kune Kunes, do you castrate the boars, or do you find boar taint isn't an issue with that breed?
I was looking to castrate. The problem with farming in New Jersey when you're not a farmer yourself and have somebody to show you is we don't have vets to castrate. There's one vet that I found that will do a farm castration. All the other vets want to do a pet castration, which is $300, just like a dog or a cat, which I'm not down with. Takes profit right out the window. I wouldn't be opposed to castrating myself, but I kind of had a preference to have a vet do it with me for the first time, just in case, I know there's YouTube videos, but I really wanted that hands-on kind of experience before I would do it myself. I didn't get that, so the 3 boars I sent to market, just under 2, we kind of crossed our fingers and hoped we weren't going to get any boar taint, and we did not. We've tested meat from all of them. We've tested the pork fat. We made I rendered some lard, and no evidence of taint in any of the 3 I've taken.
I know taint is a kind of a controversial topic. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of myth and legend around it. Some say it's voodoo, and some say you can breed it out, and some say it's always evident, or people have a genetic propensity to pick it up, and others don't. So I know there's a lot of information around there that may be correct or incorrect. It's an interesting subject, worthy of an entire podcast series, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'm interested. The 3 that I took that were at the just under 2 weren't from the boar I currently have. So I'm interested to see what his offspring produce as far as taint, because if his offspring have no taint in the first round, then I'm going to assume that I'm going to be good, and I probably won't even look to castrate moving forward. Just with trying to schedule somebody to come down here and deal with, any potential risks of hernias or miscastrations with coonies. Some coonies can be a little bit more difficult to castrate. The testicles don't descend quite as early or nicely. So it's just, if I don't have to deal with it and I can just send them at 2 years and not have to worry about it, then, I'd be happy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, taint is always the big issue, but castration time on my farm is probably one of the least favorite days of the year. I know I have 2 teenage boys, and I know they hate that day because they get recruited, so they do not appreciate castration day at all. Okay, well, let's talk about let's talk about your pasture setup a little bit. Do you have? I know Kune Kunes are good for not necessarily rooting and tearing up pasture as much. Do you find that to be true? And then do you do a rotational setup?
Our goal is let me answer the rooting. So they definitely don't root as much. I would say my dogs and chickens dig bigger holes than the Kune Kunes, but they will turn up the grass in spots, especially this time of year when the ground's just kind of coming up. So if you walked out into the field, my husband thinks they root. If you brought a farmer who's raising, a more traditional hog, they're going to look at my pasture and say, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. So yes, they do root, but nowhere near as destructive, I think, as some of the larger hogs, which is nice. My goal is to rotate. That's what we're setting up for. We do have a barn in one pasture that's kind of set up to be a little bit more like a hobby barn. And that's going to kind of be our main hub of operations. And coming off of that, I do hope to have individual pastures that everybody will kind of rotate through with, shelters out in that area for the time that they're out there. I don't have a traditional wagon wheel or setup that we can really do with our pastures. So it's going to be kind of individual pastures just that they walk through. So each pasture will have to have its own water, wallow, feed, shelter set up. And we hope to get there within the next year. So right now we don't do a traditional rotational grazing.
Okay, so in that setup, then a lot of questions come to mind there. So I guess being in Jersey's relatively flat, I would assume.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because in West Virginia nothing's flat. Our
absolutely flat as can be.
Great, yeah. Our pigs have 2 sets of legs longer than the other. So with that flat land, then of course. that gives you the opportunity to take full advantage of your acreage that you have. Out of your 7 acres, you said you had some wood area there. How much of that 7 acres would you consider pasture grass and the rest woodlot?
So right now we have, and I wouldn't call it woodlot right now. I'd call it neglected pasture that has grown up into scrub trees. And that's about 3 acres. So what we've been doing over the past couple of years is taking down all of the small trees that are really more of weeds, leaving the old growth trees, and we hope to open it up. So right now we're probably split between pasture and woodlot, and we hope to claim the woodlot back to more pasture.
Okay. Does the Kune Kune, does it forage pretty well?
Yes. They forage very well, and they love their hay. In the winter, they eat hay like it's going out of style. I probably spend more money on hay than I do grain. And in the summer, they won't touch the hay, and they just are noses to the grass and the pasture all day.
Oh, excellent. That's great. That would be my next question about overwintering. You're being in Jersey. Are you Zone 6?
Oh, you know what? I'm not sure.
Okay, you got to be close. We're Zone 6 here in Central West Virginia, so I think you all are probably 100 miles north of us. So, so obviously you have being on the East Coast there. You probably have obviously you definitely have a dormancy season where your grass and everything goes dormant. So, what do you do for overwintering as far as accommodations go? Do you have a sacrificial area?
They basically stay in their same pastures. Because we have very sandy soil, being close to the Jersey Shore, we don't have a mud season like many people do. So we don't get a lot of destruction to where they're at. They eat mostly hay in the winter, so they really stay in their same area.
That sounds very intriguing. Here in West Virginia, it's a mud pit around the middle of the winter.
I've got not a drop of mud on the farm right now, and we've had last year in New Jersey, and I know this because my husband's a mason and he doesn't work when it rains. I believe we had 180 days of rain.
Yes, it's been a very, very wet year for the East Coast.
Our water table is as high as it's ever been at reservoirs, and I don't have really a drop of mud except maybe when it rains along the fence line where sometimes they pace waiting for me to come for food. That's it.
Wow. That seems almost impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, for all the bad things about trying to farm in New Jersey, that's the one plus I will absolutely take.
Yeah, I could definitely look forward to that. That's for sure. The amount of mud and issues we have. Of course, we have the full size Durox and things, so it gets a little churned up, and that's why I have to have very tall boots at times.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing too about the Kunes being smaller. And I know I said I had 15 pigs. I haven't had 15 pigs for that long because I just had the litter last August, and they're still relatively on the small side even now. So I'm trying not to, with not having a true rotational setup right now, I'm trying not to overburden the land that I have.
Yeah, that's great. Very good. Well, talking about fencing, you had mentioned a little bit of your fencing setup. What do you use fencing-wise? Are you electric? Do you use structural paddocks?
Yeah, right now we have structural paddocks for half the area we have fenced in. Our goal is to do structural fencing around the entire perimeter of the property, and by that, because we have Great Pyrenees and we will more than likely have goats and small critters again at some point, we've done 5-foot no-climb goat fencing. That's what we started with. We weren't able to do some of the land clearing we wanted, so the other half of our pastures that are fenced off with hog panels, and that seems to be working very well as well. So my goal is to have the no-climb fencing around the perimeter and then do sectional fencing with the hog panels that we can move as we need to.
Oh, excellent. So it sounds like you don't have any electric setup then.
No electric.
Wow, excellent. Okay.
And I actually had the green garden fencing that you buy at Home Depot and Lowe's, like the 3-foot, 4-foot. I actually had my boar in that fencing for about 6 months, and he only got out once, and it was at a corner where it just wasn't well reinforced. And my neighbor came over and was like, "Your boar's over with our horses visiting. Can you come get it?"
That's great. Yep, the old pigs out story. I've heard that one more times than I care to.
Yeah, and as I'm walking him down the road of a totally non-farming area, basically, and just walking him down, he's following me for a bucket of grain. I'm thinking to myself, and this is why I have Kune Kunes.
Yes, yeah. When they're 600 pounds and a little bit harder to negotiate sometimes through the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Well, you'd mentioned that you feed out hay in the wintertime and grain, of course, during the warmer months. Let's talk about your grain regimen a little bit. What's your feed you're giving? Are you non-GMO, organic? What are you doing there?
I had started with the chickens doing the organic feed and non-GMOs, and I'd started that quite a few years ago. With the pigs, I'm just doing a regular hog, I believe it's the 16%, just a hog grower finisher from our local feed store. I'm not doing organic or non-GMO. I kind of debated, because I was doing it with the chickens, should I do it with the pigs? But people seem to be more interested with the eggs and chickens being non-GMO, and with the pigs, they were more concerned with them being, humanely raised, like out on the pasture, kind of running free, and weren't so concerned with the organic and the non-GMO. And with the very small amount of grain that I do feed, I just went with the regular.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm seeing the same thing here in West Virginia, definitely with the pastured poultry that we do, and then eggs. People are more concerned about the non-GMO, but with the pigs, same thing. They just want want to know it's on pasture and has accessibility that way. Okay, so with the feed, wow, that's I guess your feed bill's pretty low then. Do you buy in bulk? Do you find benefit in that, or with the amount that you feed out that you just kind of go as you need to?
I just go as I need to. We don't really have storage for too much in bulk. So right now we're just at a local feed store. We've got a couple in the area, which is nice. So I'm buying about 500 pounds. I'm buying maybe 1,000 pounds a month. Maybe. That's in the winter.
All right. And you said hay, so I assume you're just sourcing your hay from a feed store as well.
I'm sourcing, from a local guy. I think he brings it up from the south. I'm not sure where he gets it, but just a local kind of horse quality, goat quality type hay. Sometimes I pay the extra money for the second cutting and get them, the nice soft, squishy stuff, which they love. I don't do alfalfa, so just kind of like a Timothy grass mix.
Yeah, that keeps costs low as well. Excellent. Excuse me. Here we go. Pardon me. So let's talk about what's a typical farm day look like. Because you had said you have a day job, and of course you've got your animals to tend to. So what's a farm day in the life for Lindsey?
Oh, a typical farm day. Well, a typical regular day is I start my corporate job at 7 a.m., so depending on whether or not I have to go into the office, wake up extra early, I can get all my farm chores done in the morning in a half hour, and that involves, throwing hay and feed, making sure everybody has fresh water, enough to last through the day, and basically that's it. Cleaning the chicken coop, just doing a spot clean of the chicken coop so my eggs are nice and clean for me when I come home. And that's about a half hour in the morning. If I'm at work, then I'm at work all day. I don't see the animals till I come home at 5 o'clock, where it's time to do another round of feed, hay, water, and usually, again, that's another half hour, but what I like to do is then set up for the next day, make sure I have, enough water in buckets ready to go So in the morning, I can keep that to a minimum. I am very lucky that even though I work for a corporate pharma, I can work from home a lot. So my office looks out right over the pastures, and if I'm lucky enough at lunch, I can run out, sit outside for a few minutes and just kind of enjoy everybody.
Excellent. Yeah, that's nice. That flexibility in the work schedule does help out nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And the commute time, if I can save commute time, then that's just more time I can spend doing farm stuff.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned water, and I guess that's probably one thing we always address. I know pastured pig farmers sometimes pull their hair out when it comes to water situations. So are your pigs as cantankerous as most? Are they constantly turning over their water pails? Have you come up with a solution there?
No, my pigs are the most well-behaved pigs with their waters. I've used the black rubber buckets. I've got 3 or 4 in a field, and they have never to this day dumped a bucket. It gets muddy from their noses, but they have never flipped it over. So I'm going to find some wood to knock on, because I'm sure tomorrow that'll be different. But to this day, nope, I can set them out water, and again, I make sure they have multiple sources in case they were to do something like that, but they never have. Sometimes I get a little crazy with making sure they have clean water, and then they go and drink out of the wallow in the back of the pasture, and I'm like, why do I bother?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's great. Wow, that's really interesting. We're blessed to have a stream right through the middle of our pig pasture, so I unless we have a very dry August, I usually don't have to carry water, but yeah,
that's nice.
I think mine, I think they do it as soon as I step back over the fence. They're like, hey, watch, turn it over.
I had one baby pig last 2 years ago. One of the ones I took to market wasn't the reason I took it to market, but I had one baby pig who would sleep in the water, or kind of wallow in the water instead of the wallow. But that was the only one.
Well, that's great. You're impressing me with this breed. We may have to look into this harder. I like the high speed, low drag, zero maintenance.
Hey, and that's really what they are. I kind of wish they would just get to a marketable weight a little bit quicker. I mean, I've got 7 months old now, and 7 months with a commercial pig, you're going, it's market time. This pig, you're still going. I've got another 7 months to go at least. So if you're willing to give the time to it, then the maintenance for somebody like myself and my husband, who this is our kind of first foray into a breed and really trying to say, our pigs for us, it's not overwhelming.
That's excellent. Yeah. Well, let's talk about where you are in your setup now. What are your short-term goals with your pig operation? You talked about selling some of them for meat and obviously consuming them yourselves. But where are you right now, short-term? What do you want to see in the next 12 months?
In the next 12 months, really keeping what we're doing now is just having litters that are really designed to be meat litters. I don't really want to go down the pet trade market. If somebody wants a pet, I have no problem selling them. Or if they want to breed, I have no problem selling them as live animals. But really just being able to provide pork and sausage, or sausage was fabulous that we got from our Kunes, to our family, friends, and small markets. I would love to find a USDA processor. So right now we're not doing USDA. So right now we're not really selling the meat because legally we can't. So we're going to have to sell, on the hoof and use the butcher in that manner. I'd really like to find in New Jersey, a USDA butcher so we could do retail cuts. Yeah,
I see that more and more, especially when you get outside of the Midwest pig region. There's definitely a deficiency when it comes to USDA processors. We had one that was an hour drive from me, and he finally gave up his certification. He just wasn't paying all the fees and the labor expenses that go along with that. And it is unfortunate. And it's again,
it is. And the butcher we used, we were so happy with. I mean, everything went so smoothly. What we got back was incredible. All the kind of smoked and seasoned and processed meats just had such a good flavor to them. It's like, oh, I can't believe I can't sell this.
So in New Jersey, is there not an option for the law in the law for you to process individual cuts with a processor and sell those individually as long as it stays in state?
I'd have to look into that. I don't know all the kind of intricacies, so that's probably something in the short term that I will have to figure out. Is like, what can I legitimately legally do with retail cuts? Right now, with only taking a couple, we haven't really been forced to have to deal with that. Our first goal was to say, is our family going to even like what we have? So, right now it's just kind of been like a taste test, like, come over for dinner and, we'll cook you up some bacon and sausage, make pork chops. Do you guys like this? And we've gotten rave reviews so far. So now it's like, okay, this could be sustainable in the future.
Yeah, I can't imagine you'd have anybody turn you down when they say, hey, come over, I'm going to make bacon. Excellent. So looking at, make sure I'm understanding, have you sold any of your pigs on the hoof to customers yet? Have you touched into that market?
Not yet. We've done some live sales for like breeder animals or pets. So I've done that, but not for on the hoof for a butcher.
Okay. Well, excellent. Well, it probably segues well into the next question of long-term goals, and I think we've kind of hit on that with your processor searching and maybe getting into some retail. Are there any other goals long-term that you see, maybe increasing the size of your operation or even expanding your farm?
My long-term goal would be able to quit my real job and do this for real, but then part of me wonders, it's not really work for me right now because it's my hobby. So I want to be very careful. I don't want to make it where it's too much. Unfortunately, with where we are, we kind of don't have the option of expanding size-wise the amount of property we have. If we did, we'd have to probably look to move to a different area of New Jersey.
Yeah, I can't imagine the cost per acre would be very doable in your neck of the woods.
No, it is not. And unfortunately, New Jersey's got one of the highest property taxes as well, so that kind of hamstrings you in some way. So long term, my husband's not looking to leave the area because of his business. So my long term goal is, how can I make this work? How can I make this more profitable with what I have now?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Well, you definitely you've got the population and the demographic around you, I'm sure, to sell the product once you figure out exactly how you're going to do that. That's a great thing. You don't have to drive hours to reach a market like some rural setups do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just with my eggs, I'm selling 6-8 dozens. I mean, sometimes to the same person within a week. I mean, I can't even keep myself in eggs.
What's a dozen eggs go for? Farm-raised eggs go for in Jersey right now?
Anywhere from $4 to $6.
Very good, very good. I love that. That always intrigues me, because you'll find where we are rural, some people. In fact, I was just at the feed store this morning, and they were selling them for $1 a dozen. And
oh wow, yeah.
And then of course you find. I mean, we sell ours for $4 a dozen where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I had people give me more money. They're like, no, take this. It's okay. I'm like, oh, okay. Because they want us to continue. My mom, I mean, she's my mother, but my mother's not the type of person she's never been the type of person to give me money just to give me money. But with the pigs, she's like, I'll give you whatever you want. I just want you to keep doing it. And I'm like, no, that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have have our core customer base that just absolutely loves it. They'll do everything they can. We call them our disciples, because they'll do everything they can to promote our products because they love them so much. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I'd like to. We're going to come to the home stretch here, and I want to close with a question for you. That's kind of a maybe a deeper thought question. But what is your best experience or favorite part about raising pigs on pasture?
Oh goodness, I just like sitting outside and just seeing them enjoy being a pig. I'm not asking them to be my pet inside, which, if people want to do that, great. I have no problems. I've got a pig that could very easily become a house pig. But, I know that at the end of the day, they're just doing their thing and that's it. They don't have a care in the world, and I'm sitting out there and I don't have a care in the world, and it's just is.
Excellent. Yeah. It's one of those things where you can really find joy in just watching an animal do what it was created to do, and to be able to enjoy that natural setting. I always like Joel Salatin. He always talked about the pig's pigness, and just enjoying the pigness of a pig. And we always say on our farm that we let a pig be a pig by being out and running around.
Yep. And when I was at Rutgers, they had the farrowing barn and the farrowing crates, and they raised up the market pigs on the concrete, and I never even thought anything different. To me, that's how you raise pigs. And then I come out here, I'm like, wait a minute, I got a pig eating grass all day. There's not a farrowing crate, not a piece of concrete, well, except for my wallow because I cheat. But it was just like, wow. And I didn't even realize that was a possibility when I went to college, which is weird because I went to college to raise pigs.
That's great. It is an interesting story there, that having that professional training in that specific area, and realizing and go the different direction. I would say you've seen the light, but it is a different approach.
Yeah, I know. I've actually been very tempted to reach out to, my old professors or, whoever is there at Rutgers still and say, hey, I do a little bit different style of pig raising. Would you be interested in having some of your grad students do a project or do a master's thesis in regards to pastured pigs? I'd loan you the pigs. I've got Kune Kunes. I'd loan you some so some kids could grow up knowing that there's a different way to raise hogs.
Oh, wow. What a great idea that would be. Yes.
I know. I've debated about that. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but I'm so tempted.
Very good. Very good. Well, Lindsey, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today. It was really great getting to know your setup there in New Jersey, and it's neat to know that the Garden State still is gardening and farming and doing well there with your Kune Kunes.
Oh, we have the best peaches and blueberries and tomatoes, so we are still the Garden State.
It really is a beautiful state. I've been there several times, and it is. I've been to the areas, the Newark and in Atlantic City, but then I've also been out in the countryside. It is a lovely state.
Thank you.
Well, is there at this time? Do you have any way for people to find out more about you? Do you have any social media or website presence that people can find out more information about you?
I don't yet. That would be part of my short-term and long-term goals.
Okay. Well, great. Well, if you do, I'm sure we'll still be in touch. But if you do get the information, then I can always come back and post that in our show description there, so we can share that with people that come across this at a later time. Well, Lindsey, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your operation setup with us, and appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Thank you. I was happy to do so.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, I really I want to thank Lindsey for taking the time to talk with me. I really enjoy different perspectives and different ways people are raising their animals on pasture. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review in the podcast feed. Also consider sharing this podcast with others you think may enjoy it. We obviously would love the podcast to grow, but we do so at our listeners' efforts. So we appreciate anybody spreading the word that would there. Also, don't forget to check us out at redtoolhouse.com and click on our podcast link to recommend future topics or suggest a guest for a future interview. If you would like to be interviewed, then use that same form, drop us a line, and we'll start the process. All right, take care, everybody.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes,
visit redtoolhouse.com.